What's going on, guys? It's Minerva, founder of Desperados Gaming, and welcome, guys, to the very first Desperados podcast. Yep, guys, this is a Desperados Gaming podcast. This is a private podcast run by myself, founder Minerva, and some of my staff. Today, we have a special guest by the name of Nil. Nil, would you like to introduce yourself to them real quick?
Hello. I'm Neil. I'm a coach slash analyst for whatever team needs it. Currently, I am working with some teams, but yeah, can't wait for this podcast.
Yeah, so this is again, you're it's kind of a big deal here because you're our first guest on our first ever podcast. And just tell me a little bit about your experience in Desperados and how you got into the community in the first place, man.
Yeah, so very long time ago, um, before became a part of the group, I actually competed in these tournaments and had teams compete in these tournaments, right? Because as like a weekly tournament, it's great practice to get these immortal teams or ascendant radiant teams just up online, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I guess I was pleased by the community and whatnot that I decided, hey, let me try to make something more of it rather than just compete and that's it. So I guess here I am, part of Desperados Team 3.
Absolutely. And what would you say Team 3 like means to you? Like do you do you appreciate all that it's brought to you so far? Like are you excited for the future?
Yeah, so um, I've been buddies with these guys for a while now, having each of them be on like different teams. And I guess we all just decided to come together to make this one team. And yeah, we're all putting in hard work to just become better. Um, I know that they're putting in tons of work. I see them scrimming a lot, doing VOD reviews, practicing, all the jazz, right?
Mhm.
And I'm obviously there to aid it. I mean, I do have some other teams to commit to as well. But I mean, yeah, I see a very bright future for them.
Yeah, and I was hoping, maybe a little bit later in the podcast we could get into some of those other things that you're doing because I want to learn more about those as well. But
Sure,
from
sure.
a perspective of a player who's done both coaching and playing, which one would you say you appreciate more out of the two?
Um, what do you mean by appreciate more?
Which one do you
Like, what do
enjoy doing more,
I enjoy coaching more?
and why
The
is
reason
that?
for is in coaching, I only have to worry about like the brain work, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and I feel very confident in just like reads and strats and all of that, right? When it comes to playing, I realize that there's like a lot to handle for players because they have to handle both like the mechanical side as well as like the game sense side, right?
Absolutely.
So it's definitely a hard challenge to overcome, and yeah, I guess I appreciate good players, but personally, I see myself fit more as a coach than a player.
Absolutely. What advice would you give to, I guess, players right now who are struggling in ranked and, players in general who just feel like maybe they aren't the rank they want to be yet, but they want to get to that level? What advice could you give to players like that?
Sure. I think people over obsess about mechanical aim. You'll see people just like spam death matches to try and get better. I really think that if you want to get better, you have to one like learn your agent very well. You have to communicate with your teammates very well because in ranked you're not going to have maybe not the most cooperative of teammates, right?
Yeah.
So making sure that you can voice your opinions in a nice manner. Um, but I really think game sense is one of the biggest factors in this game. If you can get good flanks out, if you can get good bait and switches out, you're going to have so many favorable fights that even if you don't have that good of aim, it will still cover up for it.
Yeah. And would you say like the setup that someone has, like their gaming setup, would you say that affects how far they can go in the game? Like, would you say someone who just has like a regular laptop would not get as far as someone who has a gaming computer? Or does that not really matter? Is it more about just the person themselves, their ability to have game mechanics, a little bit of aim and stuff like that? Do you think that a setup matters at the end of the day in gaming in general? This is just a general question. You know what I mean?
Right. So I can actually speak personally for this, right? I I'm a laptop gamer, right?
Absolutely.
I used to have a 30 FPS laptop, and I couldn't get out of bronze, or I couldn't get out of silver. Sorry, right?
Yeah.
Um, as soon as I got a laptop upgrade, I immediately hit plat, right? So I think to an extent, uh, specs matter, right? But if you're like, oh, I need to have a 280 hertz monitor over like a 260, I think that's just over obsessing, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's like a fine line between both, but it's very helpful. This game, the time to kill is very little, as in like it just takes like one headshot, and like you have people with good aim that just always hit headshots, right? So the time to kill is so little that if you just miss out on 1 second with a frame skip or latency or anything like that, you can really miss out on a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like at least like all the pro players you see these days, a lot of them have very good setups. Like we can talk about like, you know, in any game, right? A lot of them once they do get to a certain level where they're a very high level at the game, getting the setup is just extra help to them. You know what I mean? It just even
Right, right.
furthers their experience to where they are kind of unstoppable in some ways. Like we know that Tens in his prime was a very good player. I say Tens, but there's so many more Valorant players out there nowadays that aren't big names like Tens, but they're actually very, very skilled and maybe even better than Tens in a lot of aspects. And
Right.
I think that there's not one Valorant player who's better than all the others. I think each
No.
Valorant player, even the high ranked ones, are better at different things, right? Like one could be great at this, one could be great at that, right?
Yeah. So as an example, right? I'll use like Average Jonas as an example. That guy has an insane knowledge of utility, right? Even outside of Sova.
Yeah.
His aim, maybe not the best. Boaster, insane IGL, insane reads. But once again, his aim, maybe not the best. Then you have people like Aspas and Tens, where it's basically just like Aspas go kill, Tens go kill, right?
Yeah.
Aspas does have like some game sense, but like there's so many skills to master in this game that I don't think it's reasonable to assume that one person can master it all.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so smart. Like whoever, like this game was in development for a very long time before it dropped. You know what I mean? And
Right.
you have to respect all the work that they put into every little detail of the game to make it the game that we all love today. Because if you think about it, you wouldn't be here at this podcast today without Valorant. This community wouldn't be here today without Valorant. So it just goes to show you how much Valorant has affected not just regular people's lives, but communities' lives and our ability to grow and do all these tournaments through Valorant. You know what I mean? So as someone who owns a Valorant community, um, I'm forever thankful to Valorant, because without the game, obviously there is no community, and there is no tournaments to run. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And I think it makes it like compared to like other games, Riot really funds the pro scene, right? They even
Yeah.
have like a tier two scene set up to try and get lesser known teams and players, put them into spotlight, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously we have these like little tournaments that, you know, bring spotlight to this competitive pro play, right? Even if it makes it a little bit more elementary, you're probably not going to have like the guard playing in these type of tournaments, but it's really good to bring people into this very competitive scene. Um, and I think, organizations like this is what bolsters the Valorant community to just become better. And, you know,
Yeah, and I always say this to people too when they talk about like as a community, what are we doing? We're just a platform for you guys to come and make new friends, compete, and have a good time for, a certain amount of time until you want to either stick with the game and keep doing it, or maybe you want to go off and do other things. And I think that's what people get along wrong a lot of times is they're like, oh, what happened to all the old people that used to play in here? You must have messed up or something. And I always tell them, I'm like, you got to understand that a lot of people who maybe used to play this game maybe don't have the same passion for it, right? And I think that's with a
yeah,
lot of games, right? Overwatch Overwatch is a great example. Like, I don't know if you want to touch on Overwatch real quick.
Probably not because I don't have too much knowledge about Overwatch, but one thing I do want to say is like, if people are like, oh, like, why aren't these teams competing anymore? If you think about it, like, I'm going to use like OR Esports, Orange Drop,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That team was very dominant in the tier 3 scene, right?
Yeah.
VCL like challengers came along and then they qualified for it. So their desires have changed over time. I think people are just, and you see this with like a lot of video games, right? In which
Yeah.
people want teams to just stay where they are, right?
Yeah.
They don't want teams to go up into the VCD scene. They don't want teams to go into the Ascension team. And I don't know. I think honestly that might be a bit like destroying on the Valorant culture because like I feel like we should be celebrating teams getting promoted,
Absolutely.
uh, not just like holding them back and saying they're making poor choices.
Yeah. And I always said this too, like, if I ever have a team that gets to VCT, you know what I mean? We're gonna fly out and we're gonna make sure we do it the right way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Like,
and I want to make sure that that all my players, I always have made it a priority to the players on my team, have meetings with them, let them know that I'm here as an owner and a founder to support them in anything they need, right? And a lot of times, which a lot of times you guys, at least with these teams, you guys are pretty independent for the most part in getting your guys selves into tournaments and stuff like that, right? Which is very helpful to myself because at the end of the day, I'm also running tournaments. I'm also looking at brand deals, and I'm also looking at what's the next big thing. You know what I mean? So I don't always have time
exactly.
to like I wouldn't have the time to go and put you guys into tournaments and then, you know, sit there and watch all of them. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't. But the way you guys take initiative and all the teams do is great. You know what I mean? And I hope you guys can continue to keep doing that because I think that's the way you get to where you want to be is you got to do it. And I always said this, you guys have to want to, excel and get better, right?
Right. Exactly. It has to do a lot with like motivation, right?
Absolutely.
If you just have a team that just shows up for a participation trophy, they're not going to do too well, right? You
Yeah.
have to have a team with a motive to win, right?
Yeah.
And even in like our last recent match, right? I think we were down like 0-6, 0-7,
One
but
seven, yeah.
one seven.
In one of them, yeah, 1-7, yeah.
Right, right. And that was like the start, right? But I don't know, we got our acts together. We had the motive to win. We were like we're tightening our reins and I don't know, it's just like you have to want it enough. It's not gonna just come to you.
Yeah, and
So
I think players like at least in Valorant too, right? Like lower rank players, the reason they can't get out is because I think they'll lose like 4 rounds in a row and they'll just be like, all right, this game's already over. I'm just gonna call it a day and fuck around, right? And I think that
exactly.
it's so important to stick in there. And I've always been the type of player on my teams, even though I'm low rank, I've always been the type of player that I don't care what rank I'm in, I'm still going to try very hard to win, and I'm going to continue to play and continue to focus throughout the whole game. I'm not just going to lose, even if we're down. Like, there's been times I've been down 12-3, and I've been like, "All right, guys, well let's keep trying because we're in this game and we've committed." You got to think about it in your life, right? You're committing everything you do. You're committing time, right? All in life we have is
Right.
time, right? So you're committing time to this game, so wasting it and being pissed off at the game isn't going to do anything, and it's going to make you want to play the game less and less. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think that is really
Yeah, I
important.
100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we're almost 3/4 of the way into this podcast, so I wanted to also touch on some of the stuff that you do as a coach, and you can tell us a little bit about the coaching experience and what teams you're coaching right now.
Okay, okay. So I guess I'll just start off with like my history of coaching. I started off when I was watching, I think it was Valorant Champions 2022, or maybe it was no, it might have been NA's LCQ or America's LCQ, right? And I noticed that a lot of the conclusions I was making, the casters were making the same conclusions, and I was like, do I have the brain for this? I'm like, at the time I was gold, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, do I have the brain for this? I guess I just shot my shot with some immortal radiant teams and was like, hey, I'm willing to give this a shot. I'll do a VOD review just to show you that I know what I'm talking about. And then from there, you just climb up, climb up, climb up, because you're not going to start off at the top of esports, right? And I have a long way to go to become the top. But it's just all about climbing. It's all about putting effort in, getting better each day, and taking any opportunity you get, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I guess I'll go like a little bit of like what I do in the coaching process.
Yeah.
Um, for like these weekly kind of tournaments, I just mainly focus on making sure that our team is like a well-oiled machine, making sure everyone's, you know, working
I
together.
like that. I like the well-oiled machine. I like that word. That's cool.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mess
It's
with
it's
that.
it's because like everyone has their part, right? Even if in the pro scene, frags really do not matter, right? There's a lot of rounds where I was just taking a lot of space, even though I wasn't taking any engagements. I just took lots of space, which let my team like set my team up, right? So you can't just hit tab and just be like, oh, this person's dropping 9 kills, 10 kills. It's not good, right? You can't
Yeah.
make those conclusions because there's a lot to think about in this game, right? But
Absolutely.
anyway, yeah, making sure everyone's like a well-oiled machine is very fundamental to winning these tournaments, right? Making strats, making sure that people understand what they're going to be doing from round to round, right? Some rounds you
Absolutely.
might just call for a default and like just play as it goes. But some rounds you might need to change the pace and have these set plays in which you have people stunning certain areas, flashing certain areas, smoking certain areas, right? And that's not the stuff that you can wing. So you just hop into customs, you try it out. Whatever idea comes to your mind, you just try it out. If it seems like it works, practice it in scrims. If it works in scrims, you do it in tournaments, right? And
Absolutely.
then that's how you get like not only that, but in doing so, that also builds team chemistry. It has so much you build so much trust with each other, right? Specifically for Haven, right? I had the team work on making these seamless retakes, right? And I developed some ideas for that. But the
Yeah.
thing
Because
is, in our Haven game, oh
yeah.
sorry,
No, no, I was gonna say because I saw a lot of times in the Haven game, you guys would play on kind of B and C, and you guys would kind of let A get taken over and then play retake on A. Walk me through why you guys decided to do that.
right? So I guess we figured out like I don't want to say perfect, but a very good um way to retake A, right? So
Yeah.
what we would do is make it seem like we're not playing retake, but in actuality we were, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that in these retake scenarios, they're going to have like broken utility. They're only going to have like half of it. We're going to have our full kit. So I had this team just practice doing retakes together, making sure that our lineups hit, our smokes timings are good, our stun timings are good, right? But not only that, but in doing so, we were able to do some retakes on the fly, right? I'm going to specifically point to that game. I believe it was either round 10 or 11, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I had a Molly lineup for default plan. I didn't even communicate with our Fade to do it. And the Fade saw me throw the lineup and saw that he had a seize. So he timed his seize perfectly. And then we got 2 Molly kills off of that, right? The round before, which was an eco, by the way, we were like, let's play retake A. I popped my KJ ult. I have these mollies going into A cubby. Aftershocks going into A cubby. The aftershock gets 2 kills alone, and we end up winning the round, despite I think defusing with like 3 or 4 of them alive, right? So it really goes to show like those two things of like, hey, leaderboard maybe not doesn't matter as much as people make it to be, and practice things in customs really builds team chemistry so that if you need to come up with things on the fly, you can.
Absolutely. And I would say that, for you guys, a lot of times the kills are spread out between all of you guys. It's not like one person has like 30 kills and the rest have like 10
Exactly.
or 11. which I think was good because I think the top person had what, maybe 15 kills, and the second person had 12, 10, 11. Like that, you guys were almost all in double digits, which is cool. Um, but I think also the team you guys played, Team TMU, we have to give them their respect as well because they did play good in that both of those games. They just, I feel like their strategies maybe just were a little bit lacking towards the end of that second game, at least. They maybe got a little bit, I don't know, what would you say as a from a coaching perspective? What do you guys think you broke down in that second game that allowed you guys to sweep?
Well, okay, so I think the reason we didn't have too good of a first game was because of us, right? As in, we were having like internal problems, right?
Really?
And then I think we take a round. I think we take a timeout, like either round 8 or round 9 or somewhere in the middle of the half, right?
Yeah.
And then if you notice, that timeout was like our debrief, right?
Yeah.
I noticed two things. One is they ended up just falling into like a repetitive cycle, which makes these reads just a little bit cleaner when it comes to IGLing. And two is that I don't know if they had like any mental resets because I mean, if I had like two people dying to mollies, two people dying to aftershocks, I'm personally going to get a little bit tilted. I'm like, how does this happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think people just gloss over the mental aspect too much, and a lot of our timeouts literally was just to get our mental back on track, right?
Yeah.
So
Mental is very important in Valorant, right?
exactly. Because when you have good mental, you have good team communication, you have team coordination. If you have bad mental, I really doubt people win games with having bad mental.
Yeah. And I feel like that may be holding a lot of players back as well, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Both in the pro scene and in the ranked scene. It mental is extremely important because this is considered like a team game, right? You can have a top drag drop like 20, 30 kills, but
And you
if
can
they
still
have a bad
lose.
mental, yeah, you could still lose because in the end of the day, this is a team game. You have to be lifting each other up and you have to be lifting yourself up. If you're not doing that, then you're not winning.
I agree. And I think that, in Valorant, I think Valorant is a game that is going to be around here for a long time. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. Um,
And it's
I
got
think
room
it's
to
going to,
expand too, right?
I honestly think that it's going to expand because there's always something fresh within this game, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to CS, I mean, I'm not like hating on CS, but CS is just meant to be a bit more simple because that's like a true test of like raw skill, right? With Valorant,
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity, right?
Because of the
New agents
abilities,
come out.
right? Yeah.
Sorry.
Because of the abilities of the agents, unlike CSGO, where it's kind of just guns and regular guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And people are still adapting, right? Metas are constantly changing, right?
Absolutely.
Um, agents are constantly coming out. Maps are constantly coming out. There's like a steady map rotation, right? So there's always something to look forward to in this game. Um, so yeah, that's why I think this game will expand, not like shrink.
Absolutely. And I just want to, we are at the 25 mark, so we'll probably get this episode wrapped up here. But no, we really appreciate your insight today, this evening. Congratulations on your tournament win tonight, in Desperados Gaming Friday tourney. And we wish the best for you and Team Three in your future endeavors. Is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah. I guess I have a saying that I say a lot. It's reap what you sow. If you put hard work in, you're going to reap the efforts of that hard work, right? If you're there to goof around, you're going to get the results of maybe not the best, you know?
Absolutely.
So I know for a fact that Team 3 has been putting in so much effort when it comes to getting better as a team, right? They're
Yeah,
still in like the very early phases, but I definitely have seen so much improvement within them, both at the individual and at the team play. I can't wait for whatever more is to come. And yeah, I'm just here to support these people whenever they need it because my main goal in this scene is I can try to become the best, but I want to elevate both teams and players to become better.
absolutely. And again, we appreciate, the you leaving us with some words of wisdom, you could say here. And we appreciate you coming out, Neil. That's going to wrap up the podcast today, guys. I want to do a few shout outs. One, guys, the Discord, if you guys are trying to join, it's going to be discord.gg/DESP. And again, we're a very welcoming community. We have tournaments every 2 weeks on Friday. And if you guys do join, you can guys always shoot me a DM. My name again is Minerva. I'm the founder of Desperados Gaming. Thank you guys for listening to Desperados podcast number 1. Nil, again, man, thank you so much for coming out and being our first guest. We got a lot more podcasts on the way, and we might do a part 2 in the future. Who knows? And we'll catch up with you, okay?
All right, of course, of course. And once again, thank you for all that you do for this community, and can't wait to see it grow and both us and the team, as well as the org itself. So once again, thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.